day to you, Mr. Borgin. I'll expect you at the manor tomorrow to pick up all the goods. The moment the door had closed, Mr. Borgin dropped his oily manner. Good day to yourself, Mr. Malfoy. And if the story are true, you haven't sold me anything for what's hidden in your manor. Muttering darkly, Mr. Borgin disappeared into a back room. Harry waited for a minute in case he came back. Then quietly as he could, slipped out of the cabinet, past the glass cases and out of the shop door. Clutching his broken glasses to his face, he stared around. He had emerged in a dingy alleyway that seemed to be made up of entirely shops devoted to dark arts. The one he just left, the Borgin and Birds, looked like the largest, but opposite was a nasty window display of shrunken heads. And 2 doors down, a large cage was alive with gigantic black spiders inside. 2 shabby-looking wizards were watching him from the doorway, muttering to each other. Feeling jumpy, Harry set off, trying to hold his glasses on straight and hoping against hope he'd be able to find a way out of there. A wooden street sign hanging over the shop selling poisonous candles told him he was in Nocturne Alley. This didn't help, as Harry had never heard of such a place. He supposed he hadn't spoken clearly enough through his mouthful of ashes back in the Weasley's fire. Trying to stay calm, he wondered what to do. "Not lost, are you, my dear?" said a voice in his ear, making him jump. An aged witch stood in front of him, holding a tray of horribly like whole human fingernails, like our fingernails. She leered at him, showing mossy teeth. Harry backed away. "I'm fine, thanks," he said. "I'm just..." "Harry, what do you think you're doing down there?" "Hagrid," Harry cried in relief. "I was lost. Flu powder." Hagrid seized Harry by the scruff of his neck. And pulled him away from the witch, knocking the tray right out of her hands. Her shrieks followed them all the way along the twisted alleyway, out into the bright sunlight. Harry saw a familiar snow-white marble building in the distance. Gringotts Bank. Hagrid had steered him right into Diagon Alley. "You're a mess," said Hagrid gruffly, brushing soot off Harry so forcefully he nearly knocked him into a barrel of dragon dung. And dung is like poop, like manure, okay? It's like dragon poop or manure, okay? Outside an apothecary's, skulking around Nocturne Alley. "I don't know, dodgy place. Harry, don't want anyone to see you down there." "I realise that," said Harry, ducking as Harry made to brush him off again. "I told you I was lost." "Well, what are you doing down there anyway?" I was looking for a flesh-eating slug repellent, cried Hagrid. They're ruining the school cabbages. You're not on your own. I'm staying with the Weasleys, but we got separated. We said together down the street. How come you never wrote back to me? Said Hagrid as Harry jogged alongside him. He had to take 3 steps to every stride of Hagrid's enormous boots. Harry explained all about the Dobby and the Dursleys. Ruddy muggles, cried Hagrid. If I'd known. Harry, over here. Harry looked up and saw Hermione standing at the top of the wide flight of steps to Gringotts. She ran down to meet them, her bushy brown hair flying behind them. What happened to your glasses? Hello, Hagrid. Oh, it's wonderful to see you two again. Are you coming to Gringotts, Harry? As soon as I found the Weasleys, said Harry. You won't have long to wait, grinned Hagrid. Harry and Hermione looked round. Sprinting up the crowded street was Fred, Ron, Fred, Darcy, and Mr. Weasley. Harry said, said Mr. Weasley panted. Oh, we hoped you'd only gone one grade too far. He mopped his glistening bald patch. Molly's frantic. She's coming now. Where did you come out? Ron asked. Knockturn Alley, said Hagrid grimly. Brilliant, said Fred and George. We've never been allowed. Said Ron enviously. I should very well think not, growled Hagrid. Mrs. Weasley now came galloping into view, her handbag swinging widely in one hand. Jenny just clinging onto the other. Oh, Harry, oh my dear, could have been anywhere. Well, but gotta be off. Who was having his hand run, said Hagrid, who was having his hand wrung by Mrs. Weasley's. Knockturn Alley. If you hadn't found him, Hagrid. See, you're at Hogwarts. And he strode away, head and shoulders taller than anyone else in the packed street. Guess who I saw in Borgin and Burke's? He asked Ron and Hermione as they climbed the Gringotts steps. Malfoy and his father. Did Lucius Malfoy buy anything? Said Mr. Weasley sharply behind them. No, he's selling. So he's worried, said Mr. Weasley with grim satisfaction. Oh, I'd love to get Lucius Malfoy for something. You'd be careful, Arthur, said Mrs. Weasley sharply as they were ushered into the back by a bone goblin at the door. That family's trouble. You go biting off more than you can chew. So you don't think I'm a match for Lucius Malfoy? Said Mr. Weasley indignantly, but he was distracted almost at once by the sight of Hermione's parents, who were standing nervously at the corner that ran all along the great marble hall. Waiting for Hermione to introduce them. "But you muggles," said Mr. Weasley delightedly. "We must have a drink. What's you got there?" "Oh, you're changing muggle money. Molly, look," he pointed excitedly at the £10 notes in Mr. Granger's hand. "Get back there," one said Hermione, as Weasleys and Harry were led off to the underground vaults by another Gringotts goblin. The vaults were reached by small goblin-driven carts that sped along miniature train tracks through the bank's underground tunnels. Harry enjoyed the breakneck journey down to the Weasley's vault, but felt dreadful, far worse than he had knocked on Addy when it was opened. There was a very small pile of silver sickles inside, and just one gold galleon. Mr. Weasley felt right into the corners before sweeping the whole lot into a bag. Harry felt even worse when they reached his vault. He tried to block the contents from view as he hastily shoved handfuls of coins into a leather bag. Back outside on the marble steps, they all separated. Percy muttered vaguely about needing a new quill. Fred and George had spotted their friend from Hogwarts, Lee Jordan. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny were going to the second-hand robe shop. Mr. Weasley was insisting on taking the Grangers off to the Leaky Gorgon for a drink. "We'll all meet at Flourish and Blotts in an hour to buy a school book," said Mrs. Weasley, setting off with Ginny. "And not one step down Knockturn Alley," she shouted at the twins, retreating backwards. And Knockturn Alley was where Harry just went, right? Harry, Ron and Hermione strode off along the winding cobbled street. The bag of gold, silver and bronze jingling and jangling cheerfully in Harry's pocket, was clamouring to be spent, so he bought 3 large strawberry and peanut butter ice creams, which they slurped happily as they wandered up the alley, examining the fascinating windows. One gazed longingly at a full set of Charlie Cannon robes in the windows of quality Quidditch supplies, until Hermione dragged them off to buy ink and parchment next door in Gamble and Jokes thingy, and in Gamble and Jeep's Wizard Joke shop. They met Fred, George and Lee Jordan, who was stocking up on Dr. Filibuster's fabulous sweat-stuck no-heat fireworks, and in a tiny junk shop full of broken ones, wonky brass scales, and old cloaks covered in potions. Soon they found Percy. Deeply immersed in a small and deeply boring book called Prefects Who Gained Power, a study of Hogwarts prefects and their later carries. When read aloud of the back cover. "That sounds fascinating." "Go away," said Percy. "Course he's very ambitious Percy. He's got it all planned out. He wants to be Minister of Magic, Ron told Harry in an undertone as he left it to Percy. An hour later, they headed for Flourish and Blots. They were no means the only one making their way to the bookshop. As they approached, saw was a large crowd jostling outside the doors trying to get in. Reason for this was framed with a large spanner stretched on the upper windows. Gilderoy Lockhart will be signing copies of his autobiography. Magical Me today, 12:30, 4 to 30 p.m. We can actually meet him, Hermione screamed. I mean, he's almost written the whole book list. Can't seem to me made up, mostly of witches around Mrs. Weasley's age. A Harrowsard-looking wizard stood in the door saying, calmly, please, ladies, don't push there. Mind the books now. Harry, Ron and Hermione squeezed inside. A long queue ran right into the back of the shop where Gilderoy Lockhart was signing his books. They each grabbed a copy of Break with a Banshee and sneaked up to the line where the rest of the Weasleys were standing. Gilderoy Lockhart came slowly into view, seated at a table, surrounded by a large picture of his own face, all winking and flashing dazzlingly white teeth at the crowd. The real Lockhart was wearing robes of forget-me-not blue, which exactly matched his eyes. His pointed wizard's hat was set at a jaunty angle on his wavy hair. A short, irritable-looking man was dancing around, taking photographs with a large black camera that emitted puffs of purple smoke with every blinding flash. Out of the way. There, he snarled at once, moving back to get a better shot. This is for the Daily Prophet. Big deal, stood, rubbing his foot while the photographer had stepped on it. Gilderoy Lockhart heard him. He looked up. He saw Ron and then he saw Harry. He stared. Then he leapt to his feet and positively shouted, "It can't be Harry Potter!" The crowd parted. Whispering excitedly. Lockhart dived forward, seized Harry's arm and pulled him to the front. The crowd burst into applause. Harry's face burned as Lockhart shook his hand for the photographer, who was clicking away madly, wafting thick smoke over the Weasleys. "Nice big smile," Harry said Lockhart through his own gleaming teeth. "Together you and I are worth a front page." "Ladies and gentlemen," said loudly, waving for quiet. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said loudly, waving for quiet. "What an extraordinary moment this is! The perfect moment for me to make a little announcement I've been sitting on for some time. When young Harry here stepped flourish and blots through there, he only wanted to buy my autobiography, which I shall be happy to present him now, free of charge. The crowd applauded again. The crowd applauded. He had no idea, Lockhart continued, giving Harry a little shake that made his glasses slip at the end of his nose. He had no idea he would shortly be getting the real magical me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have a great pleasure and pride in announcing that this September I will be taking up the post of Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The crowd clapped and cheered, and Harry found himself being presented with the entire works of Gilderoy Lockhart. Staggering slightly underway, he managed to make his way out with a limelight to the edge of the room, where Ginny was standing next to the cauldron. You have these, Harry mumbled to her, dipping the books into the cauldron. I'll buy my own. Famous Harry Potter, said Malfoy. Bet you loved that, didn't you, Potter? Said what Harry had no trouble recognizing. He straightened up and found himself face to face with Draco Malfoy, who's wearing his usual singlet. Famous Harry Potter, said Malfoy. Can't even go into a bookshop without making the front page. Leave him alone. He didn't want all of that. It was the first time she had said something in front of Harry. She was glaring at Malfoy. Potter, you've got yourself a girlfriend, drawled Malfoy. Then he went scarlet as Ron and Hermione fought their way over, both clutching stacks of Lockhart books. Oh, it's you, I thought Malfoy or something. That was very unpleasant on the edge of his shoe. Well, Arthur Weasley. It was Malfoy. Mr. Malfoy. He stood with his hand on Draco's shoulder, staring just the same way. He reached into Ginny's book and extracted Miss Lucia, said Mr. Weasley, nodding coldly. Busy time at the ministry, said Mr. Malfoy. All is right. I hope they're paying you over time. Well, let's see. Mr. Weasley flushed darker than either Ron or Ginny. We have a very different idea of what disgraces the name of Wizards, Malfoy said clearly, his pale eyes straying to Mr. and Mrs. Granger, who's watching apprehensively. The company, Mr. Weasley, I thought your family could sink no lower. The thud of metal as Ginny's cauldron as Ginny's children went flying. Mr. Weasley had thrown himself at Mr. Malfoy, knocking him backwards into a bookshelf. Dozens of heavy spellgers came thundering down on their heads. There was a yell of "Get him, Dad!" from Fred or George. Or Mr. Weasley was shrieking, "No, Arthur, no!" The crowd stamped backwards, knocking more shelves over. "Gentlemen, please, please," cried the assistant. "Like them all. Break it up there, gents, break it up." Hagrid was wading towards them through the sea of books. In an instant he had pulled Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Weasley and Mr. Malfoy apart. Mr. Weasley had a cut lip and Mr. Malfoy had been hit in the eye by an encyclopedia of toadstools. Still holding Ginny's old Transfiguration book, he thrust it at her eyes glittering with malice. "Here, girl, take your book. It's the most your father can give you." Pulling himself out of Hagrid's grip, he beckoned to Draco and swept from the shop. "Should have ignored him, Arthur." Hagrid, almost lifting Mr. Weasley to his feet as he straightened his robes. Written to the core of the whole family, everyone knows that. No Malfoy's worth listening to. Bad blood, that's what it is. Now come on, let's get out of there. The assistant looked as though that he wanted to stop them from leaving, but he barely came up to Hagrid's waist and seemed to think better of them. They hurried up the street, screaming, shaking with fright, and Mrs. Weasley beside herself with fury. What a fine example to set your children, bullying in public. What Gilderoy Lockhart must have thought. He was pleased, Fred. Didn't you hear when we were leaving? He was asking that bloke from the Daily Prophet if he'd be able to work the fight in his report. Said it was all publicity. It was subdued group who was headed to Fireside in the Leaky Cauldron, where Harry, the Weasleys and all their shopping would be travelling back to the Burrow using blue powder. They said goodbye to the Grangers who were leaving the pub for the Muggle Street on the other side. Mr. Weasley asked them to show how the bus works and stopped quickly at the look on Mrs. Weasley's face. Harry took his glasses and putting it in pocket before helping himself to blue powder. Evidently it wasn't his favourite way to travel. The end of chapter 4. Bye-bye.